Today's SuncatByte will be on vectors. This is a live SuncatByte, so we do have some students that can ask questions. So here we go. Vectors. What are vectors, or what is vectors? Vectors is a class designed to hold data elements in a linear list. Elements in a linear list. So to include the class, it will be count include vector. And for vectors, when data is added to the vector, vector maintains the data in that order. It's a list, so things get added one by one. So vectors allow us to add elements, access those elements, remove them, and you can also clear the vector, which basically means remove all of the elements from the vector. So programmers use vectors to hold their data because they can shrink and grow. So it's basically, you use them when you don't know how many data elements you're going to have. Okay, so with vectors we have some basic functions. So if you remember back to strings, when we were looking at strings, you had a string object, you would use the dot operator to call a function. So we would do dot find or dot size for the string. Similarly, that's how we'll call a function with vectors. And we have a few functions. The first of those functions is going to be, first function is pushback. Okay, what that does is it pushes or puts data onto the end of the vector. So that's how you add an element to a vector. Next we have the size function. And actually, pushback should look like this. Size will look like this. And what size does is what you would think it does based on what the title is. It tells you how many elements or data items, those are the same thing, are being held in the vector. And then last, or at least the last one we're going to cover in depth here, is going to be at. And what that does is it's given an integer value and it returns the data element or item at that value. Okay, so we're going to declare a vector. It's done by this. So format for a vector is going to be vector and then the data type, lowercase vector, then the data type, and then the vector name, like that. So say I wanted to do vector int, let's do something different, vector char and vchar, like that. So this says we're doing a vector. This says it's going to have chars, and the name is vchar. If I then want to start adding elements to it, say I wanted to do add a letter or something, I would do the name of the vector, which is vchar dot pushback a, like this. I'm just going to do the alphabet. I could do vchar dot. Actually, let's look at it this way. So where am I? So we look in Excel to kind of keep track of this. We have vchar here like this, and when you start looking at vectors and arrays later on, they're indexed, so they have a value that associates each element of the vector. In this case, we'll have, it's basically location, so we have 0. So when we do this vnum dot pushback a, we have the index of 0. That's where a goes. Now if we do another one, if we say vchar, I said vnum, it's vchar, vchar dot pushback, and we say b. Now we're going to be at element 1, and that's going to have b, like that. And why is this not giving me the full? I don't know, that should be in double quotes, but anyway, a, b. We do another one, and we say vchar dot pushback. Doesn't have to be a, we could say d now and skip c, right? That's going to go now where the element of 2 is. I'm just going to do it without the d. There we go. Questions so far? Good? Okay. So then if we use the size operator, say we say int num, make sure here, yep, marked unsigned and good, okay. So we say int num, and then we say here's the name of the vector, which is vchar, and we say dot size, like this. That's going to return the size of the vector. So then we'll have num here, and because there's 3 elements in the vector, that's going to say 3. So that will now have a value of 3. Last piece here is we do have this table. So we have at, which we've talked about, pushback, and then there's also empty, clear, and size. So we showed an example of this with the size. The pop back, what that's going to do is it's going to remove the last element from the vector, and then the pushback adds it on there. So if we would have done here, say we did the size, and then we went and we said vchar.popback, like that, that's going to remove the last element, so now this guy's gone. If we then did num equals vchar.size again, it's going to return the size. This will now be 2 because there's only 2 elements here. Okay, so that's general description of vector, let's look at an example right here. So we have this program, which is program 313 in your sample program. It's called vector of ints. So we have IOStream, we have vectors, so we can use the vectors. Vectors, so we can use the vectors, and then IOmanip for output manipulation. So here's the declaration of the vector. Declaring a vector of ints. It's called vnums. We're going to output to the screen demonstration of C++ vectors. We do this vnums.pushback, so we have 35, 99, 27, 3, and 54. So if we look at our Excel spreadsheet that we usually use to track stuff, in this case we have vnum, and then we have 35, 99, so we get 35, 99, 27, 3, 3, and 54, and their indexes are, you start at 0 when you count in with numbers, so that's a 0 index, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so 35, 99, 27, 3, and wait, 35, 99, 27, 3, and 54. Why 35? 3, 54. There we go. Now if we use the size function to see how many there are, this is just going to be an output. We're not saving it in a variable. So it says cout the vector has vnums.size numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So then it should say the vector has 5 numbers. Now pushback 15, 17, we add 2 more. So now we get 15 and 17 added to, or sorry, 72 added to the vector. And now we do another output of size. So see out there now, it should say 7 numbers. There, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we use the at function to obtain the values from the vector. So this for loop, we haven't gone over for loops yet. We've done while loops and do while. But what a for loop is going to do is it loops the number of times that you have. You know the number of times you're going to loop through it. So in this case, it's going to loop vnums.size times. So it's going to loop 7 times. So what it's basically going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to print every element of the array. So the first time through, this is going to print vnums.at0. Vnums.at0 will be 35. Then it'll print vnums.at99, or vnums.at1, which is 99. Then 2, which is 27. So it's going to go all the way through and print those. So if you want to access an individual element, you use the at function. Then when we're done, we're going to do an end line. And that's it. So build. And debug. So here we go. The vector has 5 numbers initially, like we had said. Now there are 7 numbers. And then here are the numbers: 35, 99, 27, 3, 54, 15, and 72. Any questions? Nope, looks like we're good. Okay, well that's it for this SuncatByte. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, we have the discussion board forum. Shoot me an email or jump in office hours.